526, you are listening to the Music Vox on Vocalo 89.5 and 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Jesse Menendez. The song you just listened to, Let Me Bleed. On their current album, Here's Your Hat, What's Your Hurry, Chicago power pop quintet Little Boy Jr. displays strong songwriting that hints at nostalgia but revels in contemporary narratives. Here to talk about the project, and studio guests Joe, Dan, Mike, and Steve, collectively known as Little Boy Jr. How we doing, boys?
Good.
Great. Very good.
Well.
I like that. Enthusiasm right off the bat. You guys just performed at the Metro. What was the show like for you guys?
For me, that was very important because, like, in high school, I went to see the Red Walls there probably more times than I would care to admit. So, like, being on the other end of that stage was really, like, nerve-wracking, but also really important. Because when I was in high school, it was kind of like, if I make it on that stage, I've made it. Which I have a new perspective on it now, but, you know. It was cool being on.
You don't feel we've made it now as of Saturday?
So after you got off stage at the Metro, you weren't like, that's it, guys.
Like,
we can,
all right, we can quit.
We've accomplished what we set out to do.
We accomplished my 16-year-old goal.
Yeah.
So we're hanging it up, folks.
This is also the last time you will hear them on air. They're breaking it back.
Exactly.
But it sounds like early on you had an enthusiasm for music. If in high school you were already saying, I want to someday perform on that stage. Yeah. What were you listening to during that period?
Like almost exclusively the Beatles, like maybe like the Stones, the Kinks, but like just all '60s stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the rest of you guys?
You can kind of just put those, I'm sure, next to all of us in some kind of different order, but I mean, kind of including a Chicago band or two, and then something a little bit more globally big.
Yeah. It seems that you guys have honed in on a specific era of music. When you think back to some of the likes that you have, what do you think it is that attracted you to the Beatles and some of the bands that you guys have said you like?
I don't know. I think there's a nice ability of the music to sound like something but be itself too. There's a lot of room for little changes that we kind of come up with ourselves. I don't know.
A nice blend of like accessible music, very poppy, but also the Beatles being so wildly original, but maintaining that easy to listen to poppiness.
Yeah, I like that you just like don't have to take yourself seriously. You know, like there's no like, it's just get in, get out with like a 2.5-minute song. There's no like, you know, we very rarely like sit and think about like very consciously like what this song needs, because like when we write a pop song, it's kind of already done. You know?
And from the audience perspective, I think it's really fun, danceable, and very easy to get hooked onto. Very catchy.
We like to provide a little something for the kids. That's what we do.
There you go. You're like the Yo Gabba Gabba of rock and roll. Man. You're providing a service. You said it.
We will quote you. That'll go on our next album, liner notes.
So even digging a little deeper and thinking, sure, pop music is pop music and it's catchy, and there's a reason why all of us gravitate toward it, because it's passive, it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's quick. Like you said, you don't really have to think too much about it. But in each one of you as musicians, there has to have been something that made you want to play that kind of music, create that kind of music, because you could have very well have did funk or R&B,
right?
But it's pop music within that vein and that sort of nostalgia that you decided to create it.
There's something so clean and not necessarily real. I guess that's kind of a cheating word to get out of it, but it's something that you could feel in 2.5 minutes. When something makes you feel like 3 minutes is too long, you know that you've kind of come to the right place. Yeah. It's kind of what we feel like now.
So when the band started forming and you're just jamming out, you're messing around in practice, was this the sound that just started coming out of the four of you, the five of you, naturally?
We had a really, like, when we started, we were doing a lot of covers that, like, didn't really fit this. It was, like early Kings Leon covers and Strokes covers.
And some Red Walls, too. I mean, there was things that we liked at the time, and then it kind of blossomed and stepped off of each other after that.
Yeah, I think once we started writing our own songs, we kind of figured out, like, we do still, like, take influence from all of those newer bands from, like, the early 2000s, but it just kind of, like, formed into, like, we're just writing pop songs, and they usually have that kind of, like, 50s or 60s chord progression to them and that feel to it.
Your parents must love the hell out of the music that you perform.
They do. They do. They love saying, like, it's melodic, you're going to like it. Like, they tell all their friends.
They get to tell their friends, my son's in a band, but you'd actually enjoy it.
Yeah, that's always but you'll like it.
So here you are initially performing these more contemporary covers, and then when you start writing your own original material, this is the sound that pours out of you. What was the first song that you wrote that made you guys look at one another like, you know what, maybe this is what we should be doing, stylistically at least?
I think it was most for me when Joe wrote "You Know It," which we still play from time to time in an extended set. But that was the first real song that we had to our name, and everything kind of sandwiched off that. Like you take little pieces of it, you throw out some of it, and then you kind of change it up based on that first track.
And were you all pretty much in agreement that this is the direction that the band should take?
I think it was just a need for some songs. You know, we just wanted to sprout off of that. Sorry, Steve, what were you going to say?
Oh no! Again, I just once we got obsessed with it. We used to have a very diverse set, and before Mike and I were in the band, it was even more diverse. And I feel like for the last couple of years, we've been honing in on like that pursuit of the perfect pop song. And
Yeah.
since we've taken that pursuit up, we've kind of focused on nothing else.
Yeah, when we first started writing our own songs, it was like it completely different. Like when we were in college, it was like kind of late '60s psychedelic kind of sounding,
Sure.
and like somehow, yeah, like we found a good like niche, like where it was like everyone seems to enjoy this, so I'm gonna keep doing that, and you know.
Yeah, and it always kind of settles in really nicely. What I like about when we write is it's like one of us will come up with an idea, and it's like that is the best possible way to do this, and it's almost like we're digging something out of the ground, we're excavating something that was already there, but we just discovered it. But at the same time, we're kind of creating, you know, our own melodies or
Yeah.
different vocal things or drum beats that, you know, all of us are in agreement. This is the way it has to be.
For
you know?
sure.
Yeah.
5:33, this is the Music Box on Vocalo 89.5 and 90.7 FM. I'm Jesse Menendez, my in-studio guest, Little Boy Jr. In terms of how you approach your instruments and the type of notes that you play, the types of tones that you get out of your instruments, very different from what you described in terms of being a cover band, essentially, doing covers of Kings of Leon and what you were doing. What was the learning curve before you were able to manipulate your instruments and make it sound like the Beatles tracks that you dug and those other 50s, 60s era group bands that you appreciated?
Turning up the reverb.
Yeah.
Is that there's more to it than that, no?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
God bless you.
But that's a
Steve.
nice first step.
Yeah.
Joe stumbled across what we like to tell engineers, live sound engineers. He was like, "Let me get some reverb," and the guy said, "I'll give you a tasteful amount." And Joe said, "Can you give us a little
Yeah.
more than a tasteful amount? Like, we want it to be a little tasteless."
And that was pretty much it then, the reverb.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's usually just like almost every new song that I have, I'm just like, Steve knows like it's gonna have a backbeat, and I think like most of those early Beatles songs, like it was understood like it's gotta move, it's gotta have a backbeat. So
5:34, you are listening to the Music Box. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Little Boy Jr. 5:37, you are listening to the Music Box on Vocalo 89.5 and 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Jesse Menendez. The song you just listened to, Perhaps Annie, from Chicago's Little Boy Jr. Joe, Dan, Mike, and Steve are my in-studio guests from Little Boy Jr. So what's been the philosophy in terms of the type of music you write and what you want the end result to be? Yes, it's poppy, yes, it's catchy, but you actually summarized it pretty well.
I did that awful thing I said I wasn't gonna do, where I said this stuff off mic. I say I like to make music that's like a dog rather than a cat. So a band like Radiohead, say for instance, makes music that I feel is like a cat. They're gonna make their music no matter what, and they don't much care whether or not you like it, and they have a lot of integrity. Our music is like a dog. It comes running right up to you. It says, "Love me." It's a 2-minute songs, and we don't waste any time, and we need to be loved by our adoring fans. And so we rush everything, and we don't have a lot of, we just try
But it's
to
not one of
pack
the
it full
awkward
of fun
dogs, is it?
moments.
That'll run up to you and sniff you in places that are a little uncomfortable and awkward.
Well, if you listen to Here's Your Hat, What's Your Hurry, some of the tracks might be that dog. Shelter dogs.
You know, it's interesting because you certainly play music that tips the cap to a certain era, but it's your own for sure. What about the lyrics? Where do you like to go for what you are going to write about? We were kind of joking that one of you was like, "Yeah, how would this sound if a guy from the 50s said it?" What about the things that you're talking about and the narratives that you do visit? Do you also want those to be a little nostalgic, maybe sock hop-ish?
I think that kind of both, like you're saying, like the introspective of a '50s guy writing music and somebody ripping pages out of their their thoughts.
Yeah.
Really kind of have almost the same result. Like they take it to the same place if they're written the right way.
So basically, you're just like, when you're writing these songs, you're like, how would Vinny from the 50s with a blade and leather jacket?
Yeah, how would Vinnie Paparelli feel if he was writing a song about his girlfriend?
I'm gonna gut you, see? It's a really bad situation I find myself in. You guys have a song on this album that I really dig called Something You See. And there's a really nice contradiction that takes place in one of the lines, one that you repeat often. You say, I see the change in me, and then you go on to say, or sing, shall I say, it's not something you see. So here's something that one person is noticing about their own behavior and transformation that the other person is not aware of. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's one of mine. I know you picked up on that probably. It's kind of a look at a relationship that you think is working out pretty well. You realize after a while that it isn't, from picking up things like that and like saying, I feel like I'm doing these good things. I feel like I'm changing myself for the better, but only I can see it and nobody else really has any clue that it's going on. So what is it all for? And that's what the song is to me.
Including the band. They're like, this is the first time I'm hearing this. We
Like,
didn't know what was going on either.
What do you mean you're doing all this? Like, we didn't know.
You don't change.
You
What's,
don't
what's,
change.
what's the
You'll never
relationship?
change.
What's the relationship between the tone of the music and what you happen to be singing about?
I feel like spooky just works well with the kind of subject matter. Like, it's usually not good love situations that I play with mostly, so kind of a spooky attitude towards it really kind of helps.
Well, if you look at the track listing for this album, you can see that some of these might be about relationships or sour relationships.
Mhm.
How do you decide, or maybe you don't decide that, maybe it's something you can't control, but how is it that multiple songs get written about something eerily similar?
I really don't know. It's just kind of what you grow up listening to. Like, you can always find a love song in a lot of different songs, but
Are these things that you yourself are going through, things that might be on your own mind at the
oh,
time
absolutely.
of writing these songs?
For me, yeah, that's something that I'm going through. I experience, and I really can't write any other ways. Joe, on the other hand, could write from plenty of different perspectives.
What has been the perspective that you've taken on
I
for
don't know.
this band?
I write like very few like personal songs where it's like me saying this is me.
What do you got to hide, Joe?
I don't have anything to hide. Most like it is kind of funny though. Like all of like the songs that I've written that don't make the band are like so real that like I don't know. Maybe it's like I just don't like put it out there. But like I do have a few songs like you can see like when I'm writing from a different perspective. Like there's not quite as many lyrics. It's more like Beatles-esque, and then like when it's really me, there's more lyrics, and you can see that like I'm kind of like
Crying.
a little bit, yeah. So
Crying on the inside. So why not? Why not just adapt what you're talking about when it's not your own experience that you're pulling from? It's more Beatles-esque.
I don't-
Why not
'cause
just write in that vein, but from personal experience?
It is. I mean, you know, like I think any lyrics come from a personal place, but like a lot of those poppy songs, like I originally just set out to make a pop song, and then like I said, like well I'll just write lyrics kind of like I'm used to, but they always definitely come from a personal place, but I didn't intend to.
Who acts as the filter when you're talking about writing really quick, catchy, sugary, sweet pop songs? Whose opinion matters at the very end? Like, okay, is this catchy, guys? Did we do it?
It's pretty much everybody. If it doesn't go over and gel or something's weird and we can't fix it, it's kind of a decided, we probably shouldn't be doing
Yeah, they
this.
slowly fade out. Like,
Yeah.
we don't
If-
we don't
Drop.
right away stop playing them, but they slowly.
And it's not just songs; it's parts of songs where we'll quickly admit that an idea is not going to work. So if something is a good idea, it'll probably work on the first couple takes, and then we go, okay, we're going to incorporate that. That's good. That's catchy.
What's the challenge in writing in a style of music that is somewhat nostalgic, but trying to make it your own? Because there are specific aesthetics that do go along with this style of music. I mean, you got the hand clapping in the background. What's the challenge in making sure you're not absolutely revisiting things, tones, melodies that have already existed?
Sometimes it's tricky not to steal horn lines
It
or
really
melodies.
sure.
It's so
Well, no,
hard.
I imagine
and then
so.
somebody else will send me a YouTube video of like something I ripped off. I'm like, oh,
Is
dang
it-
it.
you
Now I
try
can't play
it.
that. I gotta change that note now.
That's perfect. Like you try not to do all of those, but I think the best thing you can end up, like a conclusion for coming up with a song that's relative now in both ways, past and present, is that you can pick out 3 or 4 different songs in a melody or a chord, you know, like a chord structure, I guess, and say, oh, it's kind of, you know, reverent to this or that, blah blah. You know, I could tell what they like.
Yeah.
I could tell what they're going for.
Now say it like a guy from the 50s would.
So boppity boppy, I come around the corner, I hear a couple of things that I liked, I didn't know what it was, I listened to it.
5:44. You are listening to the Music Box on Vocalo. My in-studio guest, Little Boy Jr. The current album is Here's Your Hat, What's Your Hurry. For more information, you can head on over to their Bandcamp page. They are also on the Twitters and, of course, Facebook. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, man.